Hello, I'm going to upload Daf Samach Daled. We'll start from Samach Daled Amid Aleph, the first line on top. Before we start, the last thing we learned yesterday were 4 halachas. 3 of them were simple and 1 of them was incomprehensible. The first halacha was that when you weave a garment made of wool or linen, even if it's very, very small, it's makabel tumah. And that was learned from the word ay, beged. Also, if you have an ornament, no matter how small it is, it's also makabel tumah, and that was learned from the tzitz of the kohen gadol. Also, we learned if you had something which was a combination of woven fabric and an ornament, it's also makabel tumah, because the pasuk said kol kli masa. So the word kol included a hybrid of fabric and ornament. But then the incomprehensible one was that the pasuk says, with the brisa says, that a sack has something more than a beged, because the sack will become tamei as a woven object. So now let's try to figure out what that's about. So the Gemara says, Musaf sak ala beged, a sack has something more than a beged made of regular fabric of wool or linen, shetamei misham orig, because the sack will be tamei as a woven garment. The Gemara asks, Atu beged lav origu, and a garment is also a woven fabric. So where's the sack more than the woven garment? Hachi Kamer, what the Brisa meant to say was Musaf sak al habeged afo pi she'ena arug tamei. A sack is not something. The sack is made of goat's hair, and goat's hair is usually not woven. But as long as the goat's hair was made into thread and it was twisted together, it's already makabel tumah, as if it would be made of tzemer and pishtim, which is woven. That's what it meant. A sack is more than a beged, because a beged needs to be woven, and the goat's hair of a sack is makabel tumah, even if it's merely spun into thread and twisted. L'may chazi, what do you use those twisted threads for? Rabbi Yochanan shekain ani kaileya sholesh nimen v'toyle b'tzavar bitoy. A poor man would twist 3 goat's hairs together, and you tie it around his daughter's neck to make it like a necklace and hang ornaments on it. My chavrusa asked me, if that's what a poor person would do, then maybe it should only be makabel tumah by a poor person. If a rich person wouldn't do that. So, but there's a ravid in Adios that says that the reason why poor people do it is because goat's hair is stronger and it lasts longer, whereas wealthy people who can afford wool and linen would use wool and linen necklaces. Even if they tear, they'll replace it. So when we say that something that's good for a poor person is only makabel tumah by poor people, but not by rich people, if by rich people it's useless, they would never use it. But here a rich person would use it, except they can do better. They even use wool and linen, but for sure this necklace made of goat's hair is utile for a rich person as well. Before we go further and do this whole amid, let me give just a quick outline so that we follow. In Shmini it talks about things that are makabel tumas sheretz, and in Chukas it talks about things that are makabel tumas meis. As we said, goat's hair is also makabel tumah. We're going to learn that goat's hair, of course, is makabel tumah if it's spun into thread and twisted. Then it's makabel tumah, like belts that are made of that type of material. Mashenkin, if it's just a bunch of goat's hair held together into a rope, but it's not spun and twisted together, it's not makabel tumah. And also we're going to learn that horse tail and cow tail is similar to goat's hair, and as long as it's spun and twisted, it's makabel tumah. Okay, Tana Rabbana, the Rabbana taught in the Brisa, in Parsha Shmini, when it talks about things that are makabel tumah sheretz, it says the word sak. Ainly, I would not know el sak, only something made like into a sack, which is a raincoat that the shepherds wear. Minayin l'rabbi says al kilkali v'sachavak. How do you know that belts that go around the chest or the belly of an animal that are made of spun and twisted goat's hair are also makabel tumah? Talmud Leimer, it says ay sak, the extra word ay. Yochel, I would think, Shani Merabah Esa Chavalim Esa Mashichos, I would think to include maybe ropes and measuring ropes that are not spun and twisted, they're just a whole bunch of hairs that are held together. Talmud Leimer, the Pasuk says, Sak, Ma Sak Tavi Va'arig, Avkoil Tavi Va'arig. Just like a sack was spun and twisted goat's hair, so anything that at least is spun and twisted is makabel tumah, but not if it's not spun and twisted. So the ropes and measuring ropes don't count. So that was talking about Parsha Shmini, Tumas Sheretz. Now we're going to go to Tumas Meis. Hareyu Aimer, it says by Tumas Meis, B'Meis, in Parshas Chukas, V'chol klior v'chol masa izim, and anything that's made of goat's hair, tischato needs to be purified when it becomes tameh. The word v'chol masa izim l'rabbis comes to include hakilkali v'sachavak. Again, it comes to include the straps that go around the chest or belly of an animal because they're made of spun and twisted goat's hair. Yochel, I would think shani merabe es hachavolim es hamashichos. For tumas meis, should I include ropes and measuring ropes that are not spun and twisted? V'dinu, no, because maybe I would make an argument. Timei b'sheretz v'timei b'meis. We had tumas sheretz and shmini and tumas meis and chukas. Ma kishatimei b'sheretz leitimei ela tavi v'orug. Just like in shmini when we were metame goat's hair, it was only when it was spun and twisted. Af kishatimei b'meis leitimei ela tavi v'orug. So the same way logic would say, but tumas meis and chukas, it's only if the goat's hair was spun and twisted. Where it says, no, hein, is that true? Im hekel b'tumei sheretz shikala is nokal b'tumas meishi chamura. Maybe we're more lenient by sheretz because sheretz is a lighter tumah. It's only the tumah of the evening. Whereas tumas meis, which is a stronger tumah that's metame for 7 days, maybe there we should be machmir that even unspun and untwisted goat's hair is kabul tumah. Talmud Leimer, so we have a pasuk. By sheretz it says beged v'or, and it says by tumas meis beged v'or. L'gzer shava we make a gzer shava. Nemer beged v'or b'sheretz, v'nemer beged v'or b'meis. It says beged v'or and shmini by sheretz, and beged v'or and chukas by meis. Ma, just like beged v'or omer b'sheretz, leitimei ela tavi v'orug. Just like by sheretz, in shmini it's only if it's spun and twisted, because it has to be similar to sak. Af also, when it says the words beged v'or omer b'meis, when it says beged v'or and chukas, leitimei ela tavi v'orug. It's only if the goat's hair was spun and twisted. Uma beged v'or omer b'meis, timei kol masizim. The words beged v'or and chukas included anything made of goat's hair, including those straps that were spun and twisted, not just a sack, not just a raincoat for a shepherd. Av beged v'or omer b'sheretz, timei kol masizim. So the same thing by sheretz, it's not going to be merely a sack. The word kol masizim, which is said by Tumas Meis, which includes straps across the chest or belly of an animal, which are made of spun and twisted goat's hair, will be not only by Meis, but also by sheretz. So we went both ways. One more drasha. Ainli ella davar abam izim. I would think only goat's hair. Minayin l'rabbis davar abam iznav asusim iznav apora. How do you know also horsetail and cowtail? Talmud Leimar, by sheretz it said the word oy sak, so the word oy comes to include horsetail and cowtail. Wait, v'apikte lekilkali v'chavak. Wasn't the oy by sak to tell me that the strap around the chest and the belly of the animal is mekabel tumah? He says no. Hani mili mikami deleis exer shava. That's before I had exer shava. But hashta the os exer shava yaterle. Now that the word kol masa izim by Tumas Meis told me that this kilkali v'chavak that are made of spun and twisted hairs, these belts made of spun and twisted hairs, are makabel tumah. And we had beged vor to say that it's metame not only by Tumas Meis but also by sheretz. So the oy of oy beged by sheretz was extra to include horsetail and cowtail. Ein li ela b'sheretz b'tumas meis menayim. That tells me that horsetail and cowtail is metame b'sheretz. How do you know it's metame b'meis? First, the Gemara tries to do it logically. V'dinu timei b'meis, timei b'sheretz. There's tumas meis and there's tumas sheretz. Ma, just like kishatimei b'sheretz, when we were metame b'sheretz, asa davar abam iznav asusim iznav apara k'masa izim. Horsetail and cowtail is the same as goat's hair because it said oy, because it said oisak, so we had a word oy. So af logically would say kishatime b'meis also davar abam is navazusim is navapar kamasi izim. So logically by Tumas Meis it should also include horsetail and cowtail. The Gemara says no, don't make simple comparisons. Heinim hirba b'tumas erev shimaruba. Maybe we're marba only by sheretz, which is a very common one-day tumah. There will include horsetail and cowtail. But narba b'tumas shiva shehi muetes. But Tumas Meis, which is a 7-day tumah and a more serious tumah, maybe I shouldn't include horsetail and cowtail into such a chumrah. So the Gemara says finally, Talmud Leimar beged v'or beged v'or. It says beged v'or by sheretz and beged v'or by meis, which is l'gzer shava to make a gzer shava. Nemer beged v'or b'sheretz v'nemer beged v'or b'meis. Ma, just like beged v'or amr b'sheretz. The words beged v'or by sheretz asa davar abam miznav hasus miznav apar kemasa izim. Because of the word oisak, we included horsetail and cowtail. Av beged v'or amr b'meis. The same thing beged and or said by meis. Also davar abam miznav hasus miznav apar kemasa izim. So since it says beged v'or by meis, there too horsetail and cowtail is the same as goat's hair. So let's pause for a moment just to recover. So we have 3 halachas. One halacha is that if it's not spun and woven goat's hair, it doesn't count, and that's learned from sak. It has to be similar to sak, which is said by sheretz. The word oy includes horsetail and cowtail, which is said by sheretz. The pasuk kol masa isim, which is said by Tumas Meis, tells me that even straps, not just the sack, which is a shepherd's raincoat, but even the straps that are made of spun and twisted goat's hair also metame. And the Gzer Shava tells me that Tumas Sheretz and Tumas Meis both have the same halachas. The Gemara says mufna, but the words beged va'or are extra, because ilav mufna, if it wouldn't be extra, ikal mifrach, you can refute your Gzer Shava. Mal sheretz shekem metame bekadasha. How can you learn from sheretz? Sheretz is metame when it's the size of a lentil, whereas a mace is only metame when it's the size of a kazayas. And the Gemara says, "Lai truly afnuya mufna." The words beged v'ar are truly extra. Michdi, let's see. Sheretz iskish l'shichva zera. Sheretz is compared to shichva zera. The chsiv, it's written, ish asher teitzi mimenu shichva zera is one pasuk. The samach line, the next pasuk is ish asher yiga b'chol sheretz. So sheretz and shichva zera are side by side to be compared to each other. Uksiv be b'shichva zera called beged v'cholor asher lav shichva zera. By shichva zera it says the word beged and or. Is if it says beged v'or by shichva zera, why does it have to say beged v'or by the neighbor, which is tumas sheretz? Is beged v'or the cause of rachmana b'sheretz lomali shmami no lafnuye? So that beged v'or by sheretz is superfluous. The Gemara says v'akati mufni mitzad echadhu, but it's only extra on one side. Hanicha, this would work well. L'manda amar mufni mitzad echad l'meidin ve'imashivin. If you have a Gzer Shava and the words are only extra on one side of the Gzer Shava, you can learn the Gzer Shava and you can't refute it. Then I'm okay. El Manda Omer L'meidin Umeshivin is Michael L'meimer. If you hold that if a Gzer Shava has an extra word on one side but not on the other side, you can still refute it. This Gzer Shava is refutable because Sheretz is Metami Bekadasha. How do you know that the halacha said by Sheretz will apply by Mace, which is only Metami Bekazayis? So the Gemara says the Mace Nami Afnuya Mufna. The words beged v'or by Mace are also extra. Michdi, let's see here. Mace iskish l'shichva zera. Mace is also compared to shichva zera. The chsiv, it's written in a pasuk v'anegei b'chol tmei nefesh, which is tumas mace, oy ish asher teitz menu shichva zera. So the two things are said side by side. And iksiv b'shichva zera, as we just said before by shichva zera, it says v'chol beged v'chol or. The words beged v'or are written by shichva zera. If so, beged v'or the koser rachmana b'meis lamali. So why did the Torah say beged and or by meis? Shmamina lafnuye. So it's extra. So since both sheretz and both tumas meis are compared to shichva zera, and by shichva zera it says beged v'or, so the words beged v'or both by sheretz and by meis are superfluous. So we make a Gzer Shava. The halachas of sheretz, that a sack is not, a goat's hair is not metama if it's not spun and twisted, and that horsetail and cowtail also are makabel tumah, are transferred to tumas meis, and the law by tumas meis, that as long as it's spun and twisted, it's makabel tumah, even though it's not a shepherd's raincoat, so it's also tameh b'tumas meis, also applies to sheretz. This Gzer Shava works very well. Zok Yimor v'nakrev es korban Hashem isha asher motzik lizav etzadev tzamed tabas agul v'kumaz. The people who came back from war in Midian said to Moshe Rabbeinu, we're bringing back all the golden utensils that we found, and we're giving it as a korban Hashem. Amar Abelazar, Ogil zetfus shel dadin. Ogil was a form around the woman's breast, and kumaz zetfus shel beis harechem. Kumaz was a form at b'makam erva. Amar Rav Yosef says, Yachiv so hained the Targumina. That's why the Targum of kumaz is mochach, davar amevi lidegichuch, something that brings to laughter. Amalei Rabba Migufa de Krosh Mamina. Kumaz itself is self-descriptive because Kumaz is for the words Kan Mokam Zima. This is a place of Zima. V'yiksav Moshe al Pkudei Achal. Moshe became angry at the officers. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Bar Avua, Amar La Moshe Lisol. Moshe said to the Yidden, Shema Chazartem L'Kilkulchem Arishan. The reason you're bringing something for atonement, is it possible that you sinned again with the girls of Midian? Amrullah, they said, no way. Le'nifkad mimenu ish. No man has failed. No one sinned. Amrullah, so Moshe said, Imken kapara lama. So why are you bringing atonement? Amrullah, they said, Midei averi yitzanu, midei hir lo yitzanu. If we didn't sin, but maybe somebody had a thought of sin. Is miyad vanakrev is korban Hashem. And that's why we brought this offering to the Mishkan. Tana deber bishmom mipnei mahutzuchu yisol shabayis adar kapara. Why did they need to bring a kapara, the ornaments of gold that they brought back from Midian? Mipnei shezanu eineim min ha'erva, because in their eyes, at least their eyes saw things they shouldn't have seen. Amar Rav Sheish is b'nei mamon ha'kosev tachshitin shebachutz tachshitin shebefnim. Why in the list of ornaments do we list rings and bracelets, which are external ornaments, together with the ornaments shebifnim that are internal? Loimer l'chot say to you, kol hamistakel betz bektana shel isha, whoever looks even at a small finger of a woman in order to have anoah from her beauty is kilo mistakel b'makam atorfa. It says aser as if he looked b'makam erva, because you're not allowed to be mistakel b'nashim in order to have pleasure from their beauty. Okay, we'll try to upload this part 1.